Well, it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week has absolutely been pretty eventful, and there's definitely a lot to talk about as a result, so here we are. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post either on the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one you see on your screen now, so if you want to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out about 67% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing comes to us from Anonymous, and they say that Karl Anthony Towns should no longer be considered a top-tier center because he is simply incapable of taking his team to the next level like the other centers in that tier. Now, when it comes to comparing Towns to the likes of Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, it definitely isn't very arguable that he's below them in any position rankings for centers because those two are truly in a tier of their own. They're both leading MVP candidates for the season, they elevate the teams around them tremendously, and their individual production is ridiculously impressive. What this take ultimately boils down to is what you mean when you say that he's not a top-tier player at the center position anymore, because while he may not be on the same level as those two players ahead of him, I still most definitely do see him in the group right below, alongside players like Rudy Gobert and Bam Adebayo, and he still should have a decent case to be better than both of them. Towns' season this year has not gone the way he wanted it to go at all, but that's only because he got COVID and missed a large part of the season, so you can't really hold that against him. Maybe the Timberwolves wouldn't have been that good regardless, but they also aren't the most talented team out there either, so you once again have to ask how much Towns could possibly do there. I agree he's not in the top tier conversation with Embiid and Jokic, but he's still easily one of the best players at the position anyway. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Tyrone, and he says that Gary Trent Jr. will make CJ McCollum expendable to the Trailblazers. The context behind this take is that Gary Trent Jr. is having a major breakout season this year, especially lately in the games that McCollum has been missing, where he's filled in for him in the starting lineup, and with the Blazers being far from perfect and still in need of a few more pieces if they really want to compete for a championship, he thinks the team would be able to trade McCollum for those pieces to capitalize on his value because Gary Trent Jr. can capably fill in at the shooting guard position. Trent is shooting lights out this year, making over 45% of his threes, demonstrating immense improvement as a shot creator off the dribble. His scoring production has nearly doubled from a year ago, and his confidence is through the roof right now. Does this mean that the Blazers should trade CJ though? I'm not so sure. I've always preached that team chemistry is one of the most underrated aspects of competing at the highest level, and CJ is a great locker room presence who gets along with everybody and has formed a special bond with Damian Lillard. It never hurts to have someone playing as well as Trent is coming off the bench to lead the second unit, and in my opinion they should play it out and see how it goes when everyone's back healthy. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Matt, and he says that the Hornets won the sign and trade deal with the Celtics that saw the teams swap Kemba Walker and Terry Rozier. When this deal originally went down, Kemba Walker was seen as the clear prize. He was a multiple-time All-Star, a genuine top-tier shot creator, and he was going to fill the absence left by Kyrie Irving, who left the team in free agency. Rozier, on the other hand, was a streaky, inefficient, unreliable bench scorer who typically struggled to put all of that together on a consistent basis, but ever since the swap happened, things have changed a ton. Kemba has battled through a ton of injuries, his production has suffered because of it, and the max contract that the Celtics gave him is now looking kind of disastrous. Meanwhile, in Charlotte, Terry Rozier has been much more heavily featured than when he was in Boston, and as a result, His play has improved so much that it's now arguable that he's actually a better player than Kemba Walker is right now. On the season, Rozier is scoring over 20 points per game, he's shooting a highly efficient 49% from the field, and he's been one of the best volume 3-point shooters in the entire NBA, making 45% of his attempts from deep. Plus, he's getting paid half as much as Kemba is, so going back to the take at hand here, I do actually believe the Hornets won that trade. Had the Celtics had more patience for Rozier to develop, maybe they'd be better off, but instead the Hornets get to benefit from his emergence. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Mateus, and he says that LeBron James does not belong in the top 3 candidates for the MVP award this year, and that his candidacy has been based heavily on media narrative. LeBron is, of course, the most popular player in the NBA, and it really isn't close. He's been at the top of the league for over a decade now, and his dominance and duration is truly historic, and because of that, a lot of people want him to continue to find success even at age 36 in his 18th year. Admittedly, a lot of mainstream media coverage has been pushing LeBron to be at the forefront of the MVP race, and it has definitely gotten out of hand. Yes, he's having a phenomenal season this year, and also yes, his contributions to the Lakers remaining side by side with the Jazz at the top of the West standings is noteworthy, but I don't see him as the leading candidate right now. The original take said he's not top 3 though, and that part I disagree with because it's very reasonable to view him as one of the frontrunners, but personally I still have Joel Embiid leading the way in that discussion, and Nikola Jokic is right there in the conversation as well. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Chris, and he says that De'Aaron Fox has been playing like a top 5 point guard this year, but no one notices because he's in Sacramento. The Kings have actually been playing extremely well in recent weeks, with wins over the Clippers, Nuggets, Celtics, and Raptors, and De'Aaron Fox has absolutely been the one leading the way for them. Fox has been scoring about 23 points per game and has been dishing out about 7 assists per game. His speed has been lethal in transition, and he's playing much smarter and under control than years past as well. In terms of production, he's been as good as a lot of the typical guys you usually associate with the top tier of the position, but I do think that top 5 is still a bit of a stretch. I think more realistically, you could say he's a strong candidate for the All-Star team, especially if the Kings continue this positive momentum, but either way, Fox has been very impressive, and more people should take note of it. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the topics we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.